Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Thursday, March 10th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. It's hard to watch as gas prices keep going up. Analysts predict that's going to be the case for a while, and many are suggesting people step off the gas and onto public transportation. Here's KPBS reporter John Carroll on how you can ride along and save some money, too.
The 2 years that have elapsed since March 2020 have taken the Metropolitan Transit System, MTS, on a wild ride. Pre-pandemic, nearly 290,000 people a day rode buses and trolleys.
After the pandemic hit at its lowest point, that was down about 73%.
Fortunately for MTS, federal stimulus funds filled the breach, keeping the agency afloat. But Mark Olson says MTS is now able to stretch those dollars out longer because its main source of funds, ridership, is bouncing back quicker than they thought.
For last year's budget, we're anticipating about 11% ridership growth. We just updated those numbers to a 45% increased ridership growth over the previous year. On March 3rd, that was the first time that we actually hit over 200,000 passenger trips. So we're getting back to that level of about 70% of pre-pandemic ridership.
Olson says preliminary data suggests soaring gas prices might have helped boost ridership very recently. But he also says MTS is working on other ways to get more people to take the bus or trolley.
One long-term goal for increasing ridership that's been talked about is simply making transit free for everyone. If that ever happens, that's a ways down the road. But inside of 2 months, it is going to become free for one segment of the population.
Moving forward with something called the Youth Opportunity Pass, which will provide free transit for those 18 and under. And that's tentatively set for May 1st.
Olson also says the extension of the Blue Line to University City is proving very popular, helping the bottom line. The agency did struggle during the height of the Omicron surge, not so much from decreased ridership, but because so many of their bus and trolley operators were sick. Olson says that's not a problem anymore. Now, MTS's goal is making sure it can adequately fund itself when those federal dollars run out. John Carroll, KPBS News.
Commuters are exploring more alternatives to get around and avoid high gas prices. Coming up on Evening Edition, a look at the demand for electric bikes. The latest round of talks between Russia and Ukraine failed to establish a 24-hour ceasefire for civilians. And at the same time, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Poland to assure America's commitment to its NATO allies. And the U.S. House of Representatives approved billions in aid to Ukraine. Here's reporter Chris Nguyen.
The latest round of high-level talks between Russia and Ukraine ended Thursday with no progress.
I came here with a humanitarian purpose, to walk out from the meeting with the decision to arrange a humanitarian corridor in and from Mariupol. Unfortunately, Minister Lavrov was not in a position to commit himself to it.
A request for a 24-hour ceasefire was also shut down by Russia's foreign minister, who once again falsely claimed Russia was not attacking civilians.
We do not plan to attack other countries, and we did not attack Ukraine.
Ukraine continues to ask NATO to establish a no-fly zone over their country, a request NATO allies have resisted. It's a step many fear could spark a wider war, a war Ukraine says has already hit a global scale.
2 million of refugees in Europe. The nuclear threat, because Putin continues shelling the nuclear plants in Ukraine, which brings up a tremendous threat to the whole world.
Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris visited Poland to underscore America's commitment with its NATO ally after shutting down Poland's offer to get fighter jets to Ukraine. The U.S. also supplied 2 Patriot missiles batteries to Poland for defensive purposes.
The United States takes seriously that an attack against one is an attack against all.
In Washington, Chris Nguyen, KPBS News.
An update now on a San Diego bakery owner whose family is still in Ukraine. She wants to bring them here, but as KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado tells us, they still say they want to stay.
Brianna Dar, who owns and operates Oh My Cake in San Diego, has raised more than $5,000 to help the Ukrainian war efforts. People there are in the battle of their lives since the Russian invasion. Her parents, sister, brother-in-law, and nephew just fled the capital of Kyiv to a somewhat safer part of Ukraine.
Bombing was near our house.
A video chat means the world to this family right now.
I want to hug her. Soon. I hope soon.
Her mom, Svetlana Tarnovska, says they didn't want to leave, but the bombing just got too close.
We are safe now.
And they left for the sake of her 8-year-old grandson, Andrew, who jumped at the chance to practice his English.
I'm fine.
You're good. She says they have visas and could travel to Europe or even America.
Now we want to home.
She says their heart is here and leaving is just too painful.
I'm worried about our country, our people like never.
Svetlana says the war is not only physical, but psychological as well. She says her own sister, who lives in Russia and also has a daughter in Ukraine, refuses to believe her or her own daughter when they tell her what is happening on the ground in places like Mariupol, where civilians are being attacked, and even a maternity hospital was hit.
She doesn't believe me.
They're at odds, and she hopes this video and message opens her eyes to the reality.
My dear sister, we tell you truth.
She also asks San Diegans and all Americans to hear her pleas for help before it's too late.
Dear American people, dear San Diego's people, we appreciate your support for Ukraine. The war is here. Close the sky of Ukraine before the world gets another nuclear catastrophe and millions of people die. Please.
Now all they can do is pray.
I pray that war stop and soon stop.
And say glory to Ukraine.
Slava Ukraini! Slava Ukraini!
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
The sailor accused of setting fire to the USS Bonhomme Richard was in court today. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh has the story.
Seaman's apprentice Ryan Sawyer Mays was arraigned at Naval Base San Diego. He is charged with arson and hazarding a vessel. Mays faces court-martial after the admiral in charge of the Third Fleet overruled a Navy hearing officer who recommended the case not go to trial. Attorney Gary Bartle represented Mays during those hearings in December.
She does not believe that the evidence supports the case going to trial because she does not believe the government will be able to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt.
In most cases, military justice gives a commander final say in court proceedings. The USS Bonhomme Richard was declared a $1.2 billion loss. The July 21, 2020 fire burned out of control for 5 days along the San Diego waterfront. Several naval investigations have determined that the fire should not have been allowed to spread. If Mays is convicted of both charges, he faces up to life in prison. He is expected to go to trial by late summer. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
As we move from a pandemic to an endemic, San Diego County will no longer be contact tracing all COVID-19 cases. The County Health and Human Services Agency says it will follow the CDC's recommendation to focus case investigations on people who were at higher risk. And that includes people over the age of 65 and those living in nursing homes, jails, and shelters. The new target populations only represent about 10% of the total number of cases being reported. The new COVID-19 Test to Treat program rollout is underway in the U.S., and that means that if you test positive for COVID-19, you can get a free antiviral medication to help treat it. Mandy Gaither has more on how the program works and where you can get the free medicine.
2 COVID-19 antiviral pills are already available for free in the U.S., but getting them quickly can be challenging.
These treatments work to prevent the worst outcomes of COVID-19.
The new Test to Treat program aims to help that by allowing people to go to one place to be tested for COVID-19 and, if positive, be given free antiviral pills on the spot.
Hundreds of one-stop sites will open across the country this month, located at local pharmacy clinics, community health centers, long-term care facilities, and veterans health centers.
Certain pharmacies across the U.S., including CVS, Walgreens, and Walmart, have confirmed some of their locations are getting ready to take part in the program. Pfizer's antiviral pill is for people 12 and older. Merck's is for adults only. Anyone who tests positive in those age groups can be given the medications to take at home. The treatment works best when given within a few days of the start of symptoms. While the one-stop sites are ordering the COVID-19 antiviral medicines now, the orders have to be delivered before they can be prescribed. Patients are expected to be able to receive COVID-19 antivirals through this program later this week. To find a location taking part, there will be a Test to Treat website expected to launch in mid-March. For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
San Diego's new ambulance provider is likely facing fines for not providing the service that they promised. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman says Falck Mobile Health Corp got a poor review from the city of San Diego.
San Diego Fire Rescue Chief Colin Stoll says his department will be pursuing financial penalties after an early review of Falck's 911 contract found the company was regularly understaffing ambulances.
It would be inappropriate for me and premature to probably identify a dollar amount right now, but I can tell you that once this information is vetted through, that we will be pursuing that avenue.
Falck took over operations in late November after promising just over 1,000 staffing hours per day. But city data shows they've only hit that mark 8 times in the last 3 months. Falck has yet to meet their monthly minimum staffing hours, too.
The issue here is there were terms that we agreed to that are not being met.
Councilmember Monica Montgomery Stepp says Falck got the contract in part because they were going to provide a higher level of service.
Falck won outright. But if that was based on promises that could never have been fulfilled, then we have to go back to the table because that makes the process very unfair.
City officials have put Falck on notice, and they want to know within 10 days how things will be fixed.
What we've seen, along with the fire department, is a significant improvement in February.
Falck's managing director, Jeff Bain, maintains that the recent COVID-19 surge complicated staffing, with up to 25% of the workforce out at one time.
We are working hard to continue our recruitment, bring our employees on as quickly as we can.
The fire department says there have been times in areas where no ambulances have been available and they've had to rely on mutual aid while creating their own contingency plans. In a statement Thursday, Falck says they have experienced various challenges, including dealing with the pandemic surge, but they're actively working with the city toward improving the EMS system and resolving their concerns. The Fire Rescue Department says the next steps are to have Falck respond to their letter, adding that this is a very detailed contract and the city is only 3 months into it. Before fines can be issued, Falck will have time to review the city's data. The company has the 911 contract for the next 5 years. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Prices continue to rise to staggering and historic levels not seen in the U.S. in 40 years. And economists estimate soon we'll be paying even more for everything, from gas to groceries. Isabel Rosales takes a closer look.
From the gas pump to the grocery store and nearly everything in between, prices continue to rise to staggering levels, pushing a key measure of inflation to a level not seen in the U.S. since 1982.
A very hot report, and this is the 6th consecutive one. And right now, there's concerns that it's only going to get a lot worse given the situation in Ukraine.
The latest consumer price index from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics shows the cost of everyday goods rose 7.9% in the last 12 months, ending in February, a new 40-year high. and Russia's invasion of Ukraine is expected to drive inflation even higher in March.
The average American family is going to struggle to continue to battle these higher rents, higher food costs.
The report found gas prices rose 38% in the last year. Food at home prices went up 8.6%, and shelter increased nearly 5%. And economists say this could be a preview of what's to come.
The American consumer is really going to be tested. They're going to need to dip into savings. You're looking at quite a few more months of very hot inflation.
Meanwhile, the Fed also appears ready to respond to rising inflation. Last week, Fed Chief Jerome Powell said an interest rate hike was likely coming this month.
The bottom line is that we will proceed, but we will proceed carefully as we learn more about the implications of the Ukraine war for the economy.
In Washington, Isabel Rosales, KPBS News.
Affordable housing is a challenge for community colleges which haven't provided student housing in the past. KPBS education reporter MG Perez tells us some local schools are getting state funding to build housing for their struggling students.
This used to be a playground for kids and a learning center for San Diego City College students studying early childhood development. It shut down when COVID hit. A new and improved center opened around the corner last spring.
This whole place will be raised.
John Parker handles finance and facilities for City College. He knows every detail of what this corner lot at 16th and B Streets adjacent to the campus could look like within 5 years.
You'll be on the 15th floor, hypothetically, if you're in a single resident unit looking at $1 million condos or apartments right across the street.
Architectural renderings show a 16-story high-rise residential building housing 210 apartments with room for more than 600 residents, all registered students at City College. The college was just awarded $344,000 in state grant money to plan the affordable housing. More grant money will come when it's time to start construction.
We actually did have to complete a market analysis for rents and to ensure that the rents would be below market and get priority given to low-income students.
What is your housing situation right now?
Right now, I'm homeless.
Right now, Maria May is studying here at the new City College Child Development Center while living in a hotel with her husband and 2 children. The family immigrated from Mexico and continues to struggle to find an affordable place to live.
We're trying to apply for different houses, different departments, but they have a waiting list, so they never choose us. And we pay for the applications, but nothing happens.
Maria is not alone in her search for affordable housing. In 2020, City College officials surveyed their students as the pandemic proceeded. 64% of them said they were living with housing insecurity. It's a similar story in the South Bay, where Southwestern College has been given almost $1 million in state grant money to plan affordable housing for students at its 4 campuses. More than 70 California community colleges will benefit from the state's funding to help students survive and succeed.
They may have kids, transportation issues, so this will provide a relief for them to focus on their studies and get to the next level in their education endeavors.
For Maria May, that includes the dream to be an administrator or a teacher and find a break that will lead to a home for her family. MG Perez, KPBS News.
We are talking about that offshore flow continuing, some very strong winds as we talk about the canyons and some of the mountains here. So just be aware that that is going to be a threat as we head through tomorrow. High winds, they'll actually weaken, or the high pressure system, I should say, that's creating those winds actually weaken Sunday, and we will find some quieter times and also a little bit cooler weather for us before that offshore flow returns into next week. So we have wind advisories stretching into tomorrow afternoon here for some of our mountainous, canyonous areas. These are the spots that we are, of course, concerned with some of those winds gusting to more than 30 miles per hour. And as we head through tonight, that's going to continue. 35 for the low in Oceanside. We're at 49, though, in San Diego. Head to Mount Laguna, 31 for your low. So we do have some real cool air trying to make an entrance in. it is still that time of year when we're talking about some of those numbers dipping below freezing through the mountains. And as we get into Friday, again, this high pressure system that's kind of offshore, it does stay pretty strong, keeping that offshore flow, and that's why we have those winds at least through the afternoon hours. Then after that, things will start to quiet down for us. Sunny and bright, though, all the while. 72 for the high. Meanwhile, Chula Vista coming in at 71. Head towards Borrego Springs, we're in the mid-70s. So the daytime fairly mild for us. And Saturday, we don't see too many changes. We'll start to ease off on that offshore flow and transition to a bit of an onshore flow. And that's what we'll find as we head into Sunday, which is why our numbers take a bit of a dip here. 68 for the high here as we head into Sunday versus the temperatures holding on to the lower 70s. So falling just a little bit as we cruise to the end of the weekend. That's true in our inland communities, which will top out in the lower 70s versus 80 degrees on Monday for that high. So a bit of a transition there. Mountain locations, you're going to stay in the 40s and 50s here for the next couple of days. Pretty breezy, though, as we talk about tomorrow. And then we'll also see some of those winds ramp up and towards next week. And the desert locations cruising in through the 70s and back into the 80s as we head through parts of next week. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Access to abortion care in California may expand dramatically under a new bill known as SB 1375. The bill would allow nurse practitioners to carry out abortions without the supervision of a doctor. California Senate President Toni Atkins introduced it last week. She says the goal is to increase the number of healthcare workers who can provide this care across the state.
Lag, if anything, is allowing practitioners, experienced, trained, qualified nurse practitioners, to really expand to the full scope of what they're able to do. This is about providing extensive care to Californians who need access to health care, and not just abortion care, but access to primary health care. And we know that we need that throughout California, not just for abortion services.
Atkins anticipates that more people will come to California seeking care, especially as abortion rights are rolled back in other states.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, how Russia is trying to spread false information about its war on Ukraine. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Gas prices are climbing, but there is a silver lining for the environment. As KPBS science and technology reporter Thomas Fudge shows us, some people are switching to greener transportation alternatives.
I gotta have a bell to let people know you're coming.
Pamela Hill shows me her electric bike. She rides it from her home in Encanto to run errands at Sprouts and Target. It is a Class 1 pedal assist bike, which means she has to pedal, but there's a motor in the rear hub that gives her a helpful push. She's had the bike for about 2 years.
You know, my world of places that I want to entertain going just opened up vastly just because of the amount of hills in San Diego. Now I don't worry about the hills.
Hill, an appropriate name, is part of the group Pedal Ahead, which loans e-bikes to people of qualifying income levels. People can use the bike and eventually own it if they log enough miles on it.
One of Pedal Ahead's partners is Up Down Bicycles in Normal Heights. This is the shop where people come to get their e-bikes taken care of.
Uptown Bicycles owner Curtis Allen says e-bikes are a good answer to San Diego's challenging topography.
Another thing that I like to say about electric bikes is it's like riding a beach cruiser anywhere in town. So, you go along the beach and it's really comfortable, very low effort, and just hanging out with your friends or whatever. In an electric bike, you can do that anywhere in San Diego.
Edward Clancy is the founder of Pedal Ahead. He says just the 263 riders enrolled in the program have cut carbon emissions a lot.
All the carbon emissions that are being reduced by the e-bike riders, and 18.3 metric tons over the course of a year and a half. Our riders have logged or gone over 200,000 miles in 18 months.
E-bikes are not cheap. They range from $1,500 to $5,000. So Pamela Hill says she's grateful to Pedal Ahead for getting her one to use, which she takes on nice long distances.
Round trip, I'm comfortable going between 30 and 35 miles.
Thomas Fudge, KPBS News.
This Saturday, Bodhi Tree Concerts presents the Victoria and Victor Mature Cabaret. It's a unique multimedia father-daughter act in which Victoria pays tribute to her late father, a star of classic Hollywood. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando has this preview.
Victoria Mature likes to joke that her father, actor Victor Mature, was Hollywood's first hunk. He got his first break showing some skin as a caveman in 1 million years BC. Then he made musicals, moved on to film noir, played Doc Holliday in My Darling Clementine, and may be best remembered for starring in those Cecil B. DeMille biblical epics. But Victoria did not know her dad when he was in his prime. She was born late in his life after he'd retired. He died in 1999, but now Victoria is getting reacquainted with her father through his movies and a multimedia cabaret show she's created.
Tonight, I'm going to be singing songs inspired by my dad's life and career and by the man I knew growing up. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about music, a little bit about movies, and a little bit about what it was like having Victor Mature as my father.
One of the wonderfully inventive things in the show is seeing Victoria appear on screen with her dad.
What's up?
I've been watching the old movies from the 40s again. Classics like I Wake Up Screaming and Cry of the City. Those early noir films really had something.
Get to the point.
I love the music in those movies. And you might find it hard to believe, but a lot of that music has gone away.
Away? Where?
Out of the public eye. But these are top-notch songs, catchy tunes and clever lyrics. They need to be heard. I'm going to take them out on the road.
The cabaret, presented by Bodhi Tree Concerts, takes place Saturday night. It allows Victoria Mature to share memories of her father as she's creating new ones. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.